On that note, I'm really happy to introduce the program this week to the flagpole, Martin Wishnatsky. Martin, thanks a whole bunch for coming in.
John, it's a privilege and an honor to be here.
You know, Martin, I think that I've interviewed you. I remember the first time, and I've had you in this program, I believe once anyway, haven't I?
At least once.
At least once. The truth be known, and I ran into a guy on the street one time, and he cornered me, and he says, "Hey, are you John Strand?" And I go, "Yes, I am." And he said, "You know, my favorite interview I've ever heard in my whole life was you interviewing Martin Wishnatsky." And I thought, that's really interesting, because I don't know if I had told anybody, and this is maybe not the right place to start this, because I'm setting the benchmark very high, and I hope we don't disappoint the readers, but my favorite interview I had ever done was with Martin Wishnatsky. So it's a pleasure to have you on the program, Martin.
I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So let's start with the why you're here. I ran into you one day over in the coffee shop, and I didn't realize you were being interviewed by, I think it was a forum reporter. Martin, I saw that after I found my way into the coffee shop. I saw you sitting in there, and I wanted to come in and give you what was, I thought, a closer to your birthday hug. But then I found out why you were being interviewed. You're going to law school, is that correct?
Yes, next month I'm going to be a first-year law student at Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Lynchburg, Virginia. Now, aren't you from out kind of in that neck of the woods?
I'm from the Jersey Shore, so it's a little bit north and east of there.
A little closer to home. And Martin, now if I recall, you're a legal paralegal. You're in the legal field already, aren't you?
Well, I have a doctorate in political science from Harvard, so I have basic skills of being able to read and write, and as well research, and I've got some published books. So law is very much analytical writing. You have to assemble the facts, and then you have to research the law and see how the two fit together. So I've done a lot of brief writing, even appellate work. So the transition to law school should be fairly smooth.
When and how did this come about that you decided that you're going to go into law school?
Well, I wanted a little more scope for action in the values battlefield. And as an attorney, you don't need anyone's permission to take a case except the client. You don't have to convince another attorney of its validity or how to prosecute it. And also, it's a professional credential, so it gives you some flexibility.
I'm kind of jealous, Martin. You know, I really wish a few times in my life that I had a Juris Doctor degree that I really seriously could relate to what you're talking about. You know, that's valuable. Remind me, how long will you be in law school?
It's a 3-year program.
And tell me what the program looks like.
Law school is the same everywhere, except at Liberty it has a Christian wrapping and Christian values and a Christian mission added to it. But the basic curriculum doesn't change that much from one law school to another. In fact, it hasn't changed for probably over 100 years.
And how long is it, Martin, since you've been in college?
Have you heard of the year 1966?
I sure have.
That's when I graduated from college.
So that's about when I was coming out of the 8th grade, just to give myself a reference. How many students are in this law school?
It's a small one. There's about 200, 250.
Did you know this was coming, or did this come to you like in a flash of light and inspiration? How did this all evolve, that this moment occurred where you had that realization, Martin, that you needed to apply to law school?
Well, someone challenged me to take things to a higher level and either utilize my doctorate in some manner of teaching or get a legal credential that would match the legal experience that I've had.
You know, I'm laughing to myself. I'm an ACLUer to a larger degree than many might know, and I'm a card carrying, and people must be just delighted that the ACLU is no longer in North Dakota. You know, Martin, there must be some people. I'm the stupidest person in the world sometimes, but Martin Wishnatsky, there must be some people who are just delighted that you're going away to law school. Is that this? You know, I'm being honest.
Well, the way to look at it is a weightlifter who's going away for some national training.
Sure. So that begs the question: Do you know where you're going to go? Do you see yourself coming back here Do you see more of a global or a national purview when you start, or is that kind of all to be determined?
I think I will be able to connect with the national pro-life Christian litigation community in a much greater way than I've done now. So it's hard to know where that would lead, but I definitely would have no objection to coming back here.
So you've been acting local, and yet it's in a thinking local, global context, the actions you've been involved with. Martin, how would you describe, and for those just joining up with the program, John Strand, your host, this is the Flagpole here at 64 Broadway. This program I'm hosting is every Thursday night from 8 o'clock until 9 o'clock. Our guest this segment and tonight is Martin Wishnatsky. He's going off to law school, and we're just catching up in a lot of history and seeing what's coming. Martin, how would you describe what your role has been here in in our area?
I think I've been a voice for righteousness, and in particular a witness against the sexual revolution, which has overspread the land, not just here but everywhere, and the damage that it causes, not just to society but to souls. And the whole free sex culture is what I came out of. I lived it. It was my highest value. I thought that's what people ought to do. And the seeking of the pleasures of the flesh drove me. I didn't know God, and all I knew was the mind and the body, the physical feelings and desires. So it was a total revolution in my thinking when I opened the Bible and I saw where they were stoning people to death for adultery, and even if a man were to take a young woman out in the field and lay with her, not being her husband. Very, very severe punishment, and the Bible described it, so thou shalt put away evil from among you. Well, I never thought of that as evil. I thought of that as good. So I had a total change of worldview. And then in the Bible, the Lord says when lust has conceived, it brings forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, brings forth death. That's a perfect picture of the abortion culture. Because the reason that people want to have abortion be legal is so that they can dispose of the results of what they shouldn't have been doing in the first place. And if people use the reproductive capacity the way that God has ordained it within marriage between a man and a woman, then they would have a covering and protection and desire for children and family. They wouldn't the man wouldn't be sending the woman to get vacuumed out after he had finished his pleasure with her. So the free sex culture is a culture of death, and the abortion houses are the houses of death that support it. They're the waste dumps for the Playboy lifestyle.
Martin, you've never been shy about your views, and you've been consistent, and you're a present force. Are there many other Martin Wishnatskys in our community, and when you're gone, do you see others stepping forward to fill some of that void?
I have a lot of respect for the 40 Days for Life people that have mobilized a presence outside the abortion mill on killing days like today, in fact. People are out there right now. And when someone is moved by God's righteousness, that's really God's work. That's not the person's work. So God is able to do his work, and I am sure that he will always have a witness.
So others will be called as you're being called. You know, Martin, help me, for the listeners as well, understand and help me reconstruct. You're using and referring to, and you're going to a Christian college, but you're a Jewish Christian, or help me find even the words for it.
Yes, I'm 100% Jewish. My ancestors came out of the Jewish communities in Eastern Europe that Hitler destroyed. And the reason I'm here talking to you is because they came to the United States around 1910. There were some of the relatives that stayed behind in Germany, and they did not survive the Second World War.